Hi, this is Suzi and Kat coming to you from South by Southwest Interactive in Austin.
Again. It's been a year.
It has
I can't
been
believe
a year.
it. 2015, here we go. And day one has kicked off in mighty South by Southwest style with a day just jam-packed of sessions. And we're both kind of at the end of the day going, wow, what just happened?
Exactly. We're here with 20,000 of our closest friends and got to enjoy some really great speakers. How did you start your day?
I started the day watching one of my all-time favourite speakers, who just happens to be the former Vice President Al Gore. I've seen him speak now 3 times, thanks to attending South by Southwest. And look, I didn't particularly attend today for his message because we all know what Al Gore speaks about, and that's all about the climate change, no news there. But I love watching the man speak. You know, he's just one of the masters. So yeah, I kind of slid in nice and gently into South by. How about you? How did you start the day?
I started the day in what they call the day stage, which is where authors preview their books. And so I four different presentations, 2 of which really stuck with me and I thought were particularly valuable for our viewers. Yep. And one is called, and I'm just going to get it here right now, it's called The Crossroads of Should and Must. And it was a young artist, really compelling speaker, talking about how she transitioned from having a job to really finding her calling, which was art, and talking about how we can transition from not just having a job to building a career to then doing our calling. And so whether you're an employee or self-employed, it's really doing your life's work. And so her book is really about how to find that. So that I thought was really precious.
That's awesome. And just hearing about that reminds me of an Instagram account that I follow of an Australian artist called CJ Henry, who did exactly the same thing and is now making hundreds of thousands of dollars in her sketches. So, nice one.
Yeah, great.
What was one of the other books that was profiled on the day stage?
The other one was How to Build a Following Around Your Idea. And the woman is Dorie Clark. She's a contributor to Forbes and entrepreneur. And the book is also titled Stand Out. And she talked about how to get our message across, it's not just about broadcasting, which is what we find a lot of us do with social media. Yep. It's about how to get the many to spread your message to the other many. And by that, she meant, how do you create something so wonderful that people are doing your advocacy for you? Yep. And that's what the book's about.
Yeah, nice. That fits in nicely then with the session that we saw towards the end of the day with Guy Kawasaki and Peg, Fitzpatrick, thank you very much, around the art of the art of social media.
Correct.
I was going to say the magic, because it was a kind of magical session. The key essence there was be bold, be real, be valuable. But again, I think one of the key points was, is this piece of content going to encourage people to reshare it? Because if I can encourage people to reshare it just because it is such awesome content, it will get shared, and then my audience will do my galvanising and my rallying for me, not just me.
Right, and they talked about feeding the content monster. So if we're on social media, there's an expectation that we're going to be publishing content. But how to be really aware and thoughtful about what you're publishing, because everything you post says something about you.
Yeah. Exactly. And they reminded us that the content doesn't always have to be our original content.
Right.
But if you're going to curate, then make sure that it is meaningful to you and adds value to your audience.
Yeah, great. So this afternoon we got to see someone who I adore, and that's Daniel Pink, who's the author of Drive and To Sell Is Human. He's got a number of other books, but I've had the opportunity to interview him twice on a webinar. Very lucky, but now I got to see him in person. Funny, thoughtful, geeky, brilliant.
Kind of geeky.
All the most wonderful things. And his message today was about fear, shame, empathy, and more ways to motivate and change behaviour. What did you think?
Oh, I loved it. I so loved it. Easily the standout session for me today. One of the tactics that he talked about in terms of changing behaviour was using fear in the right way. So, for example, he said if you want to narrow people's focus, for example, in an emergency situation, so when briefing passengers on a plane when it comes to the safety rules, if there was to be a crash, you want to narrow their focus. And so using fear in that way is actually a really good thing. He said, but if you actually want to expand people's thought process, fear's not a good thing because it actually narrows people down. So he said, so if, for example, if you wanted to rally your employees because the business was in a bit of a tough time, and you go in and say, if you don't come up with a new product idea by the end of this week, that's the end of the business, then that's not actually going to create an expansive thought process, rather it's going to narrow, and so that's not going to achieve the result that you're looking for. So we kind of intuitively know it, but it was really good to hear that notion of fear narrows, whereas positivity expands.
And that can be also, if you ask someone, tell me 3 things you like about my company, that's really going to narrow their focus. But if it's tell us some things that you like, it's going to be broader. And depending what your goal is, you want to use your questions really effectively.
Exactly.
The other thing he said about questions is that they often beat answers. And by that, again, he meant is asking compelling questions that invites people to find answers for themselves. And that answer, in your case, might be why your product or service is right for your customer. But giving them questions that has them come up with the idea that you're the right answer.
Yeah, which will then actually motivate them to buy because they've actually created their own arguments to endorse or validate what it is that you were trying to have them believe anyway.
The other thing I really enjoyed that Daniel Pink talked about was putting a face on it. And by that he meant quite often we're very abstract. Even when we describe who our clients are, we say, women 25 to 45. Yep. And here's about be as specific as you can be and not abstract. So get to know who that customer is and then speak to them specifically. So whether that's personalising your emails or personalising your products, but the more broad you are, the less likely you are to get a result, he was saying.
Exactly. Yeah. The final thing for me about Daniel Pink was his take on positive thinking. So one of the things he said, a lot of positive thinking authors will say, be the cheerleader. Just keep telling yourself, you can do this, you've got this. And he said, the problem is that actually doesn't necessarily generate the kind of questions that you actually need to demonstrate your own self-worth. And so instead what he thought was a more useful thought style was interrogative thinking, where you actually ask yourself the question, can you do this? And if you can, how? And those 2 questions will then elicit a series of responses that actually encourage you to demonstrate to yourself that you've got this in hand, which is far more potent than just being your own cheerleader.
I love that. And he used examples of athletes, and so that some of the best athletes are not that go out there and, pump their chest, but they're the ones that think about what is the next move I need to make and what have I learned that will allow me to do this. And similarly in business, you might have a goal to have a $1 million business, but going out there and just pounding your chest isn't going to do it. But if you say, okay, so what do I need to do? What are the processes? What is the staff I need? What are the products I need? What do I need to know about my customer? Then you're going to get the result.
Exactly. Yeah. So all in all, a spectacular day 1.
Yeah, very good day 1. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back tomorrow with more from South by Southwest.